Hey, it's a new moon in Leo. We are riding the lion. We're roaring at the night sky. Hi, I'm Hagar. Welcome to Mama Mandala. We're entering a new lunar cycle with this character, with this archetype that is regal and powerful and leading the way, and also a wild and untamed aspect of ourselves. So it weaves together the capacity to both become very mindful and deliberate in how we move and unpredictable a little bit in the untamed regions of our own being. So it's this creative energy that knows how to harness itself so that it can lead the way, so that it can become the guiding force. And it's also this part of us, it's the animal nature that we want to keep close, that we don't want to turn ourselves away from. We want to keep close, and we want to get into a process of learning how to work with it, how to be with it, how to play with it. Leo is a playful aspect of our being. And being a playful, having such a playful quality in this archetype perhaps invites us to do the work that we're doing on ourselves, maybe during this lunar cycle, who knows, in a playful way. In a way that is fun and delightful and a little bit lighthearted. What a great quality to bring into the way that we work on ourselves and even the way that we work collectively. There is so much pain in the world. There is so much polarization and separation. There's so much hatred that is being spewed out from every direction. Wherever you look, somebody's hating somebody. And in a way, I don't want to say all of us because it's never everybody, but so many of us, including those of us, including myself, I'll raise my hand, including those of us who are seeing it and want to resist it, many of us have the tendency to still, through even that resistance, find a way into it through hatred because there's so much of it everywhere around us. So how do we work on that? How do we work on bringing ourselves into deeper connections with people, maybe even with people we disagree with, so that we can hear each other, so that we can help each other, so that everyone, or as many as possible, are being taken care of? And how do we do that with this Leo kind of an energy in a way that is somewhat playful and fun? Listen, it's so heavy out there. It can get really draggy and painful, and so many of us are grieving in this way or in that way. So how do we do the work in that Leo lighthearted kind of a way? And Leo, again, is a leader character. So how do we lead first and foremost inside of us? How can we find the parts that lead? Notice the parts of you. And maybe again, this is something to work with and play with during this lunar cycle that begins with Leo, has about half of it in Leo, a little bit more than half, and then shifts into Virgo season. So Leo is going to give its it's going to roar itself all the way to the end of the lunar cycle, even though half of the lunar cycle is in Virgo. And by the way, all of this stuff, you don't have to believe in astrology. I don't necessarily believe in astrology. I don't count on it as a guiding force in my life, in that I make decisions according to where the constellations are and the stars are, and it's fine if you're believing in it full force. But if you're not, and you're like me, and it's more of a whimsical, playful kind of a way to work on yourself, then all of these pieces are living inside of you in all these different ways. So what parts of you are leading parts? Even if you don't see yourself or think of yourself as a leader, we don't all have to be leaders. What parts of you lead your life? What kind of relationship do you have with those parts of yourself? What parts of you do you want to lead your life more? What parts of you do you want to be the aspects, the qualities, the traits that you want to put in the driver's seat of your life? These are some things we can bring into our contemplation, bring into a process, bring into a conversation within ourselves in this lunar cycle. Why not? Why not, right? They say the sun is in Leo right now. Why not work with what the qualities that, you know, who humans projected onto that constellation, right? Why not? So in the tendencies of Leo, in that capacity to lead the way, there are of course shadows. So maybe it's arrogance, maybe it's a little bit of a narcissism, right? That's very much of a shadow everyone talks about with Leo. I read something really funny. I think it was on Overheard LA on Instagram. So that it's something like, everyone I dated that was a complete psycho was a Leo. And the other person says, everyone I dated who believes in astrology was a psycho. You know, it's kind of like a silly little thing. Who knows? But Leo, in the shadow aspect of it, tends to be narcissistic. And we all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have aspects of ourselves that are expressions and experiences, qualities that we can see in narcissism. So then, you know, and that word is being thrown around so much these days, so much, right? Like everyone you don't like becomes a narcissist, right? So how do we work with, when we start to reflect on and look at ourselves and at the tendencies of narcissism that we all have, how do we work with it? How do we tend to the shadow? How do we turn toward it and integrate it and go, oh wow, okay, I have these parts, and in that playful spirit of Leo, how can I work on that? How can I lead a conversation with myself that is healthy, that is helpful, that actually makes the change, that actually helps to calm down the way that maybe the narcissism is rageful. Maybe it's the self-hatred that becomes rageful when you start to look at yourself and see some things about yourself that you're like, oh wow, that meets a description of something that I really don't like, that sounds really unhealthy. Is this harming the people in my life? How do we turn to that in a way that is supportive and helpful? You know, one of the qualities that are associated with the Leo archetype is that they are helpful. They're good friends. They're loyal. They're trustworthy. Can you be trustworthy with yourself? Because I don't know about you, maybe I think a lot of us maybe have these tendencies where we spin into these places inside of us that are really unkind. We're really damaging to our own spirit. We say things to ourselves inside our heads that we would never say to somebody else. We see qualities, aspects, conversations inside of us that we're horrified by, and then we beat ourselves up, and then it becomes this self-hate festival, and then that's never helpful, right? So how do we do the work on the qualities and the aspects of ourselves in the way that we can trust ourselves, with ourselves, like we would trust ourselves with a child? Do you trust yourself with your inner child? Do you speak to yourself in a way that makes you feel a little safer? Even and it doesn't have to happen all the way, right? Like, and all the time there's going to be the moments where you find yourself in a raging, self-hating spin, and then if you catch it, what do you do? Because it's not so much about, at least for me, and maybe this will speak to you. So I'm sharing in case this speaks to you, and arrives in your heart in this place that is helpful. If you how you catch yourself in the moments of maybe self-hate, or maybe treating somebody else really not the way that you would want to, or even with your kids, if you have kids, if you speak to your kids in a way that you're like, whoa, I just caught myself and this is not how I would like to mother them, then those moments of catching and pivoting are so important. They're golden. They're like the golden sun of this time of year in the northern hemisphere, when Leo is in charge of in charge of the sky. How we catch ourselves and then what we do with it is what matters, because we all are going to have tendencies that we're going to fall into, the grooves in our being that we're going to drop into, that have been maybe our tendencies since childhood. And this is kind of where the water flows more easily, because the water of the conversation has flown through it and carved an easier path for water to flow down through, right? So then if we want to pivot, like what turn can you take in the moment when you catch yourself like water flowing down a mountain in the grooves of, you name it, I'll say self-hatred, because that's kind of one of the places where I go. How do you then go, oh wow, okay, I want to carve a different path. I caught it, I see it. I don't want to keep following that path. I'm gonna keep digging a groove somewhere else, and that's gonna take some time. But I'm choosing to come at it from a different perspective. And that is, I think, can be, for some of us, that can be the royalty, the leadership of Leo, the Leo part of us. And you can go, if you're into astrology, you can go into your chart and see where Leo is and play with it in those places. But what I like to do, and you don't have to do it the way I do it, you can do it however you want to do it, but I like to just take the archetype and see where it lives in me, even if it's like not chart related. Sometimes, yes, I love to play with that too, just for the fun of it. But sometimes it's not about where it is in the chart, but just where I see it in my life. Where do I recognize it in myself? Man, the air condition here is so strong right now. I'm like, my nose is reacting. Sorry. So to lead our lives is not just, oh, I'm seeing my goal and I'm going in that direction, which is very Leo also, because Leo lives in us as this strong desire, and we all have desires. We all have wants all the time. All day long we want things. That's not something to turn away from, something to turn toward. It teaches us something about ourselves. It shows us something about ourselves, and it invites us to do again the play work that we need, and to also strengthen ourselves so that we can, in some cases, not always, not all the time, follow our desire, follow our passion, follow the things that we want, so that we can have the life that we want. And of course, following it isn't always going to give it to us the way that we want it. And then how do we work with it? What do we do? Leo is that aspect of ourselves that is, yes, leading with that willpower is another quality of Leo, like leading with the willpower, but then also, okay, I'm seeing the goal, I'm seeing the desire, I'm going toward it. But on the way, some things are happening. And Leo is our capacity to lead through the hurdles, lead ourselves in and out through the conversations that we have with ourselves in ways that are friendly and warm and loving and helpful. So when Leo is an integrated and grounded ego, it's the knowing our personality, knowing who we are, being true to ourselves, being open in our heart, and leading with that, leading with this self, some call it self-mastery, but But we can't fully master an animal. We can't tame that wildness of our being. And that's another it's another theme that we can work with, play with during this lunar cycle. It's that the lion is a wild animal, and yet it is leading, it is royal, right? It is untamed, and it is the part of us that we think of as self-mastery. So it's, again, both and it's an invitation to then consider, how do I allow the wild, because the wild is the creative, and the wild has been demonized for so long. It has been put in the dark dungeons of churches forever. The wild is the feminine encoded, not in a gender way, but it's the feminine encoded. It's the soil, the darkness of the soil. It's the nighttime. It's the parts of us that for so long, as patriarchy has controlled the world, these things have been put away and demonized, and you can't really tame them. You can't really tame the animal nature. We can pretend like we do, but we are always an animal. We're not, like, humans are not separate from the animal world. We're differentiated. We're definitely different in many ways. But the parts of us that are, again, like that primal desire thing that Leo is very much living in us as, is an invitation to touch those places that are animalistic. It's a creature that follows the call of pleasure. So Leo is very much of a pleasure-oriented sign, archetype, right? Different in a way than Taurus is, or than Scorpio is. Interesting enough, those three are fixed signs, right? They are the places, and also Aquarius. So it's the places in the season that is in the middle of the season. Those four signs are fixed signs. They anchor us in the character of a season. So Leo in the northern hemisphere anchors us in summer, and in the southern hemisphere it anchors us in winter. So all the stuff we're talking about in the Leo season in the northern hemisphere are kind of like turn more inwardly, right? Whatever is happening on the outside, and what's happening on the outside right now with nature, how we're anchored in it with Leo, is the generosity of the earth. And Leo is very much of a generous, warm-hearted character. So it's this life-giving, like the sun, energy. It's this reaching from the inside and sharing the radiance with others, right? And again, in the narcissistic tendency, it can turn into, in the spotlight, and in the, I don't know why I said it that way, but in the grounded, integrated way, it's I'm the light, so I can share it, and we all are. That's why we have Aquarius on the other side of Leo. So the full moon in the middle of this lunar cycle is going to be in Aquarius, and they complete each other, because Aquarius is very much of a collective, communal, the power is for the community kind of a character, while Leo is, I have the power. But when Leo is grounded, it's generous. It shares the power, right? And so Aquarius and Leo kind of come together in this beautiful way to complete one another. And it's fixing us in this moment, in the season, grounding us into the way that the earth is nourishing, that everything in the natural world right now is fully giving itself, sharing itself, offering itself. And so we can also then receive, we can allow the gifts of this time to to come into us, to nourish us, to offer us what we need. And even though we don't necessarily think of Leo as a motherly character, right? We had the previous sign was Cancer, and that was a mother character. The next one that's coming, Virgo, is the harvest goddess, who is very much giving and offering. And she's a woman who's onto herself, Virgo. So she's not necessarily married and is a mother. But Leo is kind of like this other aspect of what generosity is. And what is really cool is that in ancient Egyptian mythology, Hathor, who was mostly associated with cows, she's kind of most famous for being a cow goddess. She's very much of a mother energy. She's the mother qualities. And she's also the goddess of sexuality and sensuality and pleasure and music and dance and party all night kind of an energy. So we see, and why I'm mentioning her is because she's also associated with a lion. She sometimes has a lioness head. And it's beautiful to remember and to tell ourselves about ourselves. And this is why I like to play with astrology, not in that faith-based thing, a little less in what it's doing in my chart, and more how do I see this archetype in my life? How do I interact with this character in my own being? And to see that things overlap, that things can move around the circle and show up in different places, and that they are transitional, that we move from mother into the wild beast of our being into the virgin, the independent woman, that we have some time, right, of movement between archetypes that is a bit liminal and a little less linear, much more fluid. So things overlap and interact in these meaningful ways when we don't block them in boxes of archetypes. Let the archetypes, let that work, let that play, breathe. And that is very much in that, I just think about it as in the way that the lion walks. In that regal way, there's also this dangerous, wild quality, and this invitation to be fluid in how we move. A feline kind of a movement is fluid movement, and it can snuggle and cuddle and put its head next to you so that you can pet it, right? Like a kitty kind of a quality. And it's also dangerous as fuck, right? You don't want to meet a lion on the street. So it's this play with aspects of ourselves. There's other lion head goddesses in Egyptian mythology, such as Sekhmet, she actually might be, according to what I read, might be the origin of why this constellation is thought of as the lion, kind of like in the source of the archetype, because this is the time of year. Think about ancient Egypt. Think about Egypt. Think about the desert, scorching sun of end of July and August. It is hot. The heat is intense, and Sekhmet is a goddess with a lion head that represents the scorch of the heat of the sun in the middle of the day. She is dangerous and intense, and she's a protective goddess. She protects you like you are her baby lion. And there's a creative quality, and there is a destructive energy to it. So the destructive and the protective work together. And there's other examples of other gods and goddesses that are associated with lion that are very much kind of carrying this in-betweenness and this capacity to hold the complexity of being more than one thing. So Hathor is both the motherliness and the sexuality that led to it, all woven together in one. She's both the cow, milk giving, nourishing, and the protective aspect of the lion, right? And I think of Circe, the witch goddess from the Greek mythology, who is accompanied by a lot of animals on her island of Aiaia, but most famously, she's accompanied by lions. So she's able to befriend the lion. She doesn't control the lion. The lion doesn't necessarily sleep with her in her bed domestically in her house. She needs the house because she's a personification in a human kind of a way. She's a goddess, but she's a person. So she needs the boundaries of a house, of domestic life. And the lions sometimes sleep in the house, and the house is very much connected to nature on that island. Maybe she leaves the door open. Sometimes they come in and go out, but they have the ability to go in and out. So with our animal nature, we want to let it have its wildness, and we don't want it to eat us. So we don't want it to consume us. And sometimes when we try to control aspects of ourselves, they end up being the ones devouring us. So it's not a control thing, which some people may think. It's more of a, how do we befriend the beast? And this lunar cycle maybe is an invitation to befriend the aspects of ourselves that are beastie, so that again, we lead our lives. We become the leader of our own being and collect and gather, because it is already now harvest season. Collect and gather the aspects of ourselves that we've grown and cultivated, that we want to be, or that are naturally our skills and talents, that we want to be the ones that sit in the driver's seat and take us where we desire to go, where our dreams are, where a pleasurable, but not just in a, oh, it's just happy kind of a way, but a pleasurable in it's meaningful. There is depth. There's something in it that is fulfilling, even if it's not fully accomplished, right? So it's not mastery of self. And mastery of self is very accomplished. It's life is still going to be messy, and we're going to leave room for the mess so that life can breathe through us, so that we can keep the door open, so the lions can go in and out as they want, but we also feed them. We make sure that they don't eat us. We give the parts of us that are wild something to eat, and we make even offerings to these parts of us, and we teach it what not to do. We guide it in the direction that we want it to go. I hope this is somewhat helpful, meaningful, somewhat thought-provoking for you, and giving you some things to work with, play with in this next lunar cycle. And come back to this video during the lunar cycle so that you can hear the themes again. Like maybe once a week, listen to it on your walk and think, oh, am I interacting with these aspects of myself? Am I doing this work? Do I want to keep working on it? Where do I want to direct it? Keep revisiting it so that it can keep supporting you. And if it's supporting for you and helpful, please share it with your people. Tell your people about it. Send them the video. Journal about it. Have conversation with loved ones about it. See, laugh about some of the things I said if they don't seem like they kind of sit with you. Have fun with it, but do it in a communal way. Have your friends with you on the ride. And if you do like this video, put a like on it. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel. I would appreciate that so much. And then you can be informed every time a new video comes out. There's going to be a practice inspired by Leo coming at you in a little bit. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it, so that you can bring some of the qualities of Leo into your body and keep working with that during the lunar cycle. And head over to mamamandala.com, subscribe to our mailing list if you like this. Over there, we go way, way, way deeper. There's actually a course that I'm putting together that's going to come out, and that is going to be very much of a working with ourselves, gathering ourselves so that we can guide our lives, but also maintain relationship with the wild. It's very much in line with some of these themes that we kind of like spiraled through in this conversation. So the announcement will be in a month-ish. So subscribe to our mailing list so that you don't miss out on it, because it will be very helpful for your life if you need that kind of strength gathering your parts, working with the aspects of yourself that you want to nourish and elevate, and guide yourself in a way that feels most authentic and most helpful for you and more than you. Thank you so much. Okay, I hope to see you soon. Mwah!